The Tau Empire occupies anywhere from 350 to 1,000 worlds on the eastern fringes of the Milky Way galaxy. A relatively new and small empire, it sits between the realm of Ultramar, the Sortek dynasty, and the eastern edges of the Cicatrix Maledictum. In terms of the timescale of other empires, such as the Imperium, the Tau as a species have only existed for a moment. But it has taken the Tau only 6,000 years to grow from cave-dwelling primitives to a species with technology that is equal to, and in many cases superior to, their human counterparts. Their ideology, commonly referred to as the Tau Va, or Greater Good, is the bedrock of their society as laid down by the first ethereals in their ancient past. It speaks to common understanding and collaboration towards the greater good of the Tau species as a whole, and has guided their movements from medieval history all the way to galactic expansionism. But can they survive in this harsh and unforgiving galaxy? How was their empire founded, and where is it headed? Today, I'd like to try to answer that question. The Tau race was first discovered by the Adeptus Mechanicus in the year 789.M35, around 5,000 years after the Horus Heresy, during the period of the Imperium's history known as the Nova Terra Interregnum. The explorator ship, Land's Vision, came across the planet of Tau when they were still in their Stone Age, having mastered primitive weapons such as spears, simple knives, and fire. This ship then returned to the Imperium, bringing news of a planet that could be colonized for the glory of the Emperor. Tau is a small world of wide savannas and mountain ranges, and could see use under the Imperium's rule, but first the native Xenos would need to be eradicated. A force was planned to cleanse the planet of the Tau species and bring humanity to its wide and arid plains. However, by a twist of fate, this force would never arrive. The emergence of a sudden warp storm around the planet would destroy the fleet sent to colonize it. These warp storms would remain around the planet for the foreseeable future, acting as a shield to any that might encroach on Tau territory, even as the Imperium was plunged into the Age of Apostasy. The wars fought that raged during the 70 years that it lasted, taking up the entirety of the Imperium's attention as Goj Vandaya sought to consolidate power. During this time, the world of Tau itself would enter a period of prolonged war and rapid development known as the Mont Au, or Death Age. This was the time before the ethereals emerged within Tau society to guide them, and tribal wars ravaged both land and species alike, plague and violence killing Tau by the thousands as they fought for power. During this time, they would develop their ability to kill quickly, moving from tribal warfare to the first forms of gunpowder weaponry, quickly entering a medieval society of castle and cannon. This age seemed as though it may last forever, lights in the sky heralding what many believed were the end of days. Their species was destined to snuff itself out through internal conflict before they had even risen past the age of stone and steel. But then came the ethereals. Coming to the mighty siege of the largest mountain fortress, two unusual figures would walk amongst the warring Tau, one within the walls of the fortress itself, and one in the besieging camp. Together, these two would ask calmly, but with an aura of authority that few could resist, to see the commanders of each side. Any Tau that witnessed this felt oddly compelled to obey them, and so they were brought to their leaders. Within hours of their appearance, these strange Tau had engineered a meeting between both sides where they spoke to the strengths of every tribe. Here, they professed a belief that if they could only work together, then they could all work towards a greater good than that of any individual Tau, but only if they were to set aside their arms and work together. By the next morning, a truce had been agreed. This was the first domino of many. Across the entirety of Tau, ethereals would appear heralding the greater good, spreading their ideals through Tau society. By 791.M36, just 1,000 years after they were first discovered by Land's Vision, they were a united species. The Death Age had come to an end, and a new era of the greater good had begun. What followed was thousands of years of prosperous innovation. The caste system, implemented by the ethereals, allowed each Tau to grow to the best of their abilities within their subspecies. Interbreeding between castes and moving between roles was forbidden, referred to as Vashya. The new Tau society was one of adherence to one's role, and though small deviations were allowed, Vashya could not be tolerated. The greater good of all Tau demanded obedience and adherence to the role given to them at birth, and nothing less. This marked the beginning of what would become the Tau Empire, and by the later years of M41, it had reached its current size. Despite not yet having mastered proper warp travel, the 5th Phase expedition brought many new worlds into the fray, and though its encounter with the Death Guard at the Battle of the Startide Nexus greatly reduced the size of the 5th Sphere fleet, it continues to expand, with a 6th sphere already in the planning. Limited by their understanding of warp travel and only able to make small dips into the realm between the warp and real space before re-entry, their expansion is slow but inexorable. Their ability to steal worlds by words as much as force of arms being one of their foremost assets. The Tau are split amongst 5 different castes. Each caste is a sort of genetic subspecies of the Tau genome, with each one having distinct physical differences from one another. These are inherited from the original tribes of the Tau homeworld and are strictly kept from interbreeding. A Tau's caste is determined at birth and cannot be changed. The Fire caste is the Tau's military. From this caste comes all of their warriors. Bred to be strong, aggressive, and have a mind for military tactics, they are descended from the warrior tribes of Tau's arid plains. Fire caste members are guided by the Code of Fire. This is their guiding military ethos that teaches a fire warrior how to conduct themselves in war, teaching them honor, obedience, and self-sacrifice. From the simplest foot soldier to the most renowned commander, these warriors seek to master the art of war in its purest form. In war, they are known for their practicality. Not seeking a glorious charge or useless defense, the Fire caste will work to complete a war in the most efficient way possible. They will learn their enemy's weaknesses and exploit them to the highest degree, systematically deconstructing their foe or bypassing them entirely if need be. A Fire warrior will never take a fight that they know they cannot win, not unless their sacrifice will further the greater good more than their survival would. The Earth caste are the scientists, engineers, laborers, and artists of the Tau Empire. These are the Tau that raise buildings, develop new technology, and create works of art. Stoic, simple, and calm, the Earth caste work to further the greater good by propelling their society upwards. Every technological breakthrough has been thanks to the tireless work of an Earth caste member, from the lowliest agricultural irrigation system to the mightiest battlesuits and starships. They will pursue innovation with a fervor that would make the mechanicum of Mars sick. To them, innovation is their sacred duty. To cast away a technological advantage would be unthinkable, for it works towards the greater good of the Tau. The Water caste are the ambassadors, negotiators, traders, public servants, and diplomats of the Tau Empire. Trained in the art of words rather than war, they can use their silken tongues to win over any species that listens to them. They are the first weapon that the Tau Empire uses to conquer new territory if it can. Their propaganda and arguments for unity even winning over several imperial worlds. They are the Silent Blade. First appearing as simple traders, they will insinuate themselves into a society and make themselves invaluable to it, bringing wealth and trade as well as honeyed words. The Water caste is the glue that holds Tau society together, their linguistic and diplomatic abilities smoothing the way for intra-caste cooperation. They're also able to understand other species on a much deeper level than the other castes. Able to interpret almost any language, they can not only translate speech quickly, but interpret symbolism and context that others would never think to look for, their ability to emulate these languages further aiding their duties as ambassadors. The Air caste are the pilots of the Tau Empire. Willowy and thin due to their time in low gravity, they hold the Empire together through their skillful piloting of the Tau Navy and merchant fleet. No ship in the Tau Empire flies without an air caste at its helm. Descended from more avian Tau, they have superior depth perception and greatly improved G-tolerance compared to many species, and as such are better natural pilots, though many lack direct combat experience. The Ethereal caste are the rulers of Tau society and shepherds of the greater good. They rule the Empire from the Ethereal Council with the Ethereal Supreme at their head. The first Ethereals appeared at the very inception of their empire, and as such hold the greatest degree of control over all other castes. They are the architects of the greater good, Together, they use their control of the castes to propagate and accelerate the spread of the Tau Va. They also exhibit an uncanny control over other Tau, and though the true source of it is unknown, it is shown to be potent indeed, to the extent that should an ethereal command a Tau to kill themselves, they will. You are Talisera bonded to your team? I have that honor, Master, replied Wellclaim. 6 Kairotar now. We are very happy. Take out your bonding knife. Of course, said Wellclaim, reaching around to the ceremonial dagger she kept in a sheath at the base of her spine. She unclasped the lynx skin sheath and unfurled the satin cummerbund that bound it around her waist, holding it forth for inspection. It was a truly beautiful example of its kind. She was always proud to show it off, and doubly so to an ethereal. Now, take the bonding knife out of its sheath. Wordlessly, she did so. The metal blade slid from its housing with a soft hiss. Something burned behind her eyes, in her throat, in her guts, making it hard to think. Now kill yourself. Wellclaim reversed the knife in her hands and stabbed herself in the chest as hard as she could, burying the knife to the hilt in her own heart. Eyes wide, she gasped out a welling glut of blood, toppled over, and spasmed her last. A delta of crimson spread out beneath her, rivulets tracing the hexagonal mosaic tiles of the ethereals, bringing calm to Photan. Within Tau society, it is forbidden to move between these castes. If one is to do this, they are labelled as Vashyar, meaning between spheres. The punishment accorded to a Tau that commits this crime has been shown rather inconsistently. Sometimes it is rewarded with light teasing, and at others, Tau can be so scared for their life that they fear being taken in the night. It is clear, however, that many members of castes must dip into others to be able to work effectively. A battlesuit warrior must know how to do basic field repairs in order to survive, just as a water caste member must be able to pick up a rifle and know how to shoot it if necessary, though the fear within some does speak to a darker side of the caste system. 2 excerpts display this difference most starkly. Firstly, an excerpt from Empire of Lies shows that while the core worlds may be strict in their adherence, often further flung Tau take a more casual approach to censure. Is it not the water caste's role to translate alien tongues, Commander? Said Yeldy wryly, bursting the bubble of Sylfwing's silent accusation. Surely it is considered Vashyar for a member of the fire caste to take such a duty on himself. A hot coal of anger burst into flame within Farsight's soul, but he said nothing, studiously ignoring Yeldy's bait. The pilot knew full well that his darkest moment had come as a result of being accused of being Vashyar, between spheres, a state considered taboo amongst many traditional sept worlds. On Dalith he had been publicly reprimanded for it, and the course of his atonement had set the path that had doomed his mentor, Commander Puretide, to mental dissolution. This second excerpt tells a different story, however. Taken from the book Blades of Damocles, it shows us the perspective of a member of the water caste that has not only taken up art, something seen as exclusive to the earth caste, but honed the skill to be at the same level as her ambassadorial abilities. Not many of Dalith's thriving water caste lived under the planet's surface. Most of her kind preferred the hubbub of the city plazas and took residences in the most populous of regions. But Amante was not like most of her kind. She cast a glance towards her liquid sculptures, arranged with great care upon the table. They were both her secret shame and her greatest joy, a constant symbol of the dichotomy at the center of her soul. Ripples flowed across their surfaces, their shimmering light reflecting upon the ceiling as the deep bass of explosions boomed above. It was unheard of for one of the water caste to pursue the art of sculpture. Acts of material creation were the exclusive province of the earth caste. Amante, driven by something inside her, had created them nonetheless. Something in her mind's eye had called them into being, and she had been inspired to give them form, much like the Tau life donors that were sometimes inspired to seek out the generation farms in the labyrinthine earth caste complexes beyond. The strange multiplicity of her skill set was why she had never experienced the blessed union of Talisera with her voice team, and why she never would. It was a connection so deep that her bondmates would uncover her secret in a matter of a few rotar. For a Tau even to show aptitude in the arts of another caste was forbidden, let alone to hone that talent until it rivaled their birth-given skills. To stray between castes was to risk being named Vashyar, a mark of disgrace and censure that could not be erased. It was a far graver sentence than the empty loneliest Amante had embraced as a precaution. Even a Watercast ambassador had no chance of talking their way out of that. If the Ethereals confirmed the accusation, the matter was settled, and the punishment inevitable. Those so named were taken away, ostensibly for attunement to the sacred tenets of the Talvar. In Amante's experience, such individuals rarely came back, and those that did were so bereft of nuance they made the intelligences of their drone minders look sophisticated by comparison. She had secreted a pulse pistol in her quarters a long time ago, just in case they came for her in the night. This caste system has worked in concert with their duty to the greater good to give every Tau a purpose. It is part of their ingrained culture, and has clearly worked for them, allowing for rapid growth through communal effort for the betterment of all. It is a system built upon faith in the Talvar and faith in the people around them. They believe that they have a duty to the greater good, as do all those who serve the Tau Empire. This surety of purpose is one not shared by many races, and lets them stand apart from empires like the Imperium, who rule through fear and faith in a deity above all. And though there is evidence that the Ethereals rule through something other than raw charisma, it has ultimately resulted in a prosperous society where the average Tau is happy with his lot in life, their ambition funneled into furthering themselves within their allotted caste. Outside of this caste system lies their many allied Xenos species: Kroot, Damati, Galg, Greet, Moralian, and even Guevesa, humans that have joined the greater good. These auxiliary species are treated as second-class citizens within the Tau Empire, and in the case of the Vespids, may even be kept loyal through direct mind control. However, it is shown that their treatment is better than most scenarios they would find themselves in otherwise. After 3 Talvir waiting, I'm finally slated to have the throat repair surgery next week. If it all works, then I'll be off back across the Damocles Gulf, leading the first frontline Galvesa Cadre from the new conquests to fight on behalf of the Talvar. I don't care that it'll be against those who were my brothers. I relish it. Nothing's perfect. The Imperium certainly is not. The Commonwealth isn't either, but it is less cruel. If for no other reason than the lesser evil is better than the greater one, I've pledged myself entirely to the cause. You are 5 castes, 1 people, but you are also now a dozen species, 1,000 cultures. In spite of this, there remains, for now, 1 goal. I will do my utmost to ensure that that goal is fulfilled, for I have wholeheartedly made your goal my goal. Talvar. The greater good, or Talvar, is the leading ideology or faith of the Tau Empire. As laid down by the first 2 Ethereals to appear to the Tau, it is a collectivist system that demands that every Tau works for the betterment of Tau society as a whole. The Talvar is embodied by the Ethereal caste, first among the castes. After all, who better to instruct them on how to best serve the greater good than the very beings that brought it to them? This gives the Ethereals an unusual degree of authority within Tau society. Acting as voices for the greater good itself, they often make decisions with far-reaching consequences that only they can foresee, and for reasons only they are aware of, often appearing cold and unfeeling to those that their decisions affect. This ideology, as well as the Ethereal's guidance on how to best follow it, has shepherded the Tau society through the last 6,000 years of their evolution. Under the greater good, a single Tau life is worth very little compared to the needs of the Empire itself, and the Tau will gladly sacrifice thousands of their own if it is what is best for the Talvar. Although this can often seem callous and even cruel, the greater good can only continue if the Tau are able to cast aside their feelings of sympathy and self-preservation in order to serve something greater than themselves. What are the lives of their bondmates compared to the greater good of all Tau? If a Tau was given the choice between giving up information on a sept world or death, the Talvar demands that he die to preserve the millions of Tau inhabiting that planet. We see the essential nature of working for others to their culture displayed in the Talisera, a bonding ritual that binds a group of people together, abandoning their individuality in order to better serve their team. The sacred tool of this ritual is their bonding knives, which they use to spill their own blood as a sign of their dedication to their fellows. This creates intensely tight-knit groups that would go as far as to die for each other if needed, and is most popular amongst the fire warrior teams of the Tau military. Throughout Tau history, however, we can see that great figures of leadership within the other castes can often meet unfortunate fates at opportune moments. A great hero dying for the greater good is a potent propaganda piece to be used, and so it can either be seen as convenient or sinister. that so many prominent figures die just as their death would have the largest impact on the people, or just as doubts entered their mind. Figures such as Puretide, whose mind was eaten away by neural mapping technology to create the Puretide engram, killing the mighty commander so that his knowledge would serve the greater good past his life. Admiral Li Mao Teng, a legendary air-caste admiral, and more. Commander Farsight himself may have been sent on a suicide mission when he first travelled across the Damocles Gulf, meant to be another martyr to hold up the Tau Va and prevent someone other than the ethereals from gaining traction and adulation. Adjacent to this, we have the seeming immortality of the high ethereal, deemed too valuable to die. He was replaced by a hologram after his assassination, so that the greater good can be furthered without the weight of its most prominent figures passing. This propaganda, created and promoted by the Watercaste, is essential to the greater good's survival. Belief that the Tau Va is something not only worth fighting for, but also right, just, and ultimately achievable, is core to the Tau's belief, and the propaganda that affirms this in every Tau's mind is core to preventing the weight of the galaxy's many horrors from crushing the greater good in its crib. This system, though at times sinister and dark, is able to provide better living conditions, technological advancements, plentiful food and resources, as long as the member species and castes work together towards a greater good. Compared to the Imperium, who regularly massacre other races and are ruled by 1,000,000 petty governors, the Tau seem the shining example. They do not just work for the survival of their species at all costs, they work for the betterment of every Tau and non-Tau individual within their empire. Of course, this comes at a cost. The Tau Empire, in a way, is a false thing. The benevolent entity it claims to be, hiding something darker and with more similarities to the Imperium than it would like to admit. A person's worth is not inherent, nor is it judged by something as ineffable as the love of those around them. It is judged purely by its worth to the greater good and the net benefits that it provides. Should they be found to no longer benefit the greater whole, they'll be cast aside, their removal serving to prevent any possibility of them undermining the Tau Va. Ultimately, the Tau are under the control of the ethereals, and serve them through the greater good, the true nature and goals of the ethereals being unknowable and suspicious at best. The life of a Tau is without many of the freedoms we would consider typical to a prosperous society, born into a set role never to deviate from that path under pain of death. But within the galaxy of 40K, the Tau Empire at least provides plentiful food, space, and a relatively peaceful existence, allowing for at least some upwards mobility through their set roles according to their raw capabilities. The Tau Va cannot afford to waste good minds as the Imperium can, and understands that in order for them to get the best out of their people, they need to live lives that fulfill them. But there is an alternative. The Farsight enclaves, disconnected from the Tau Empire and not under the control of the ethereals, represents an alternative route for the Tau as a species. Though relatively young, the Farsight enclaves allow cross-caste function as long as aptitude is shown. And even though there are no ethereals to influence their lives, they remain steadfast in their dedication to the concept of the greater good. Could this represent a brighter future for their species? Free of control and allowed to live their lives as they see fit, even as they serve the Tau Va? The Tau are a unique case within the galaxy. In many ways, they are reminiscent of what human society must have been like during the Dark Age of technology. A technologically adept, but spiritually inept species. They know little of the greater mysteries of the universe compared to the older, more world-weary empires such as the Imperium or Eldari. They know little of the warp, the average Tau having no concept of what a psyker or demon could be, their weak souls allowing them little insight into what they refer to as mind science. This presents a unique problem for the Tau. Should they march forwards, blind to those dangers, they could fall prey to the machinations of the Chaos Gods, or even worse, be wiped out entirely, their ignorance of the warp directly contributing to their downfall. The warp, and their lack of knowledge on it, is one of the largest hurdles that the Tau Empire faces, and is my belief that their navigation of it will be what makes or breaks their society. They are intelligent, innovative, and great observational learners, but ignorance of the ineffable may prove to be a sand trap that they cannot escape from. This is where the ethereals seem to hinder more than they help, as it is revealed on Artus Moloch that they have kept the true nature of the warp from the wider Tau for a long time, a fact oddly reminiscent of what occurred between the Emperor and his sons, and we all know how that ended. The second danger they face is the sheer size of the forces arrayed against them. The Tau Empire spans only 1,000 worlds at most, with many of them sparsely inhabited. Their growth has been fast in the last few hundred years, but their short lifespan, combined with the fact that they are emerging in the final act of the galaxy's drama, may prove to be their undoing. It is fortunate for them, then, that the galaxy is as violent as it is. If the Imperium was able to bring even a percentage of its military might down on them, their empire would be dust in a matter of years. The ongoing crisis of the Cicatrix Maledictum, the rise of the immortal Necron Empire, as well as the incursion of the Tyranids into the galaxy, has entirely consumed the other races' attentions. The Tau can use this to their advantage. For as long as they are seen as a minor threat, they'll be safe. But if they show their hand too early, if they display their potential might with naked ambition, they might find themselves under more pressure than ever before. The mystery of warp travel once again is an essential piece to this puzzle. If they are unable to navigate the galaxy at the speed that the other races can, they'll find themselves outpaced and outplayed by races far older than they, technological supremacy or not. And finally, we have the nature of the ethereal castes and the potential weakness of the Tau Va. What really are the ethereals, and what is their ultimate goal for the Tau? We know that they appeared suddenly, likely from the void, right after a major warp storm cut the Tau off from the rest of the galaxy. Are they benevolent guides, keeping Tau society safe through sometimes callous but necessary acts of subterfuge and sacrifice? Or something darker, more sinister, puppet masters to an entire race of unknowing slaves, controlled by some hitherto unknown means? They're clearly not simple villains, and in many ways do truly care for their people. But as with anything in 40k, they are not black and white. Some have posited that pheromones play a strong role in their control, others theorize indoctrination or even psychic means. But what is clear is that despite their great power, they feel threatened. Figures like Farsight, like Puretide, ones who gain immense renown within wider Tau society, threaten the grip that they have on their people. It's the reason they sent Farsight away to begin with, and in doing so, alienated him and created the very problem they now face. A stable society without ethereal influence has been formed, one that even encourages Vashya. How would the public react if they saw the alternative? At the same time, it is undeniable that the ethereals are responsible for the Tau's current state. They have successfully prevented them from wiping themselves out in senseless war, and the Farsight enclaves, while prosperous, are still young and unproven. But this fear may prove to be their undoing. It has already forced them to resurrect their assassinated leader, their fear of dissolution in his absence too great to allow him to truly die. At the heart of these actions is ego, and it speaks to the weakness of ethereal rule. If they can't trust the Tau Va to survive in its current form after the High Ethereal's death, how, truly, will it survive with them leading it at all? Their ideology has survived for thousands of years already, but how will the greater good stand up to the wider galaxy? The crux of the Tau Va relies on the belief of their people, and if the average Tau can't trust that their efforts towards the greater good will actually bear fruit, what's stopping the Tau Empire from descending once more into the Death Age? In order to maintain the faith in the greater good, the propaganda of the Watercast must hold true, and the true scale of their enemies hidden. If you knew that your empire faced a force 1,000 times larger than you, would you truly be able to maintain faith in your cause? This is the problem that the Ethereals face. Their stewardship of the greater good has seen their empire rise far in the last 1,000 years. But it is now that they face their greatest threat. As the empire grows and more humans are brought into the fold, they must ensure that information that may threaten the foundations of their society is kept secret. And these methods will have to be merciless. Like all civilizations, propaganda and the withholding of damaging truths will hold up the wider society, a dark underbelly to the shining example of progress they claim to represent. The Tau represent a more hopeful future, one where the atrocities of the Imperium or the machinations of chaos have no foothold. But the pressure of the galaxy and its horrors won't tolerate such naivety as theirs. It will demand that they come down to their level, and in time, the Tau Empire may find itself progressing further and further down that road, the necessity of brutality causing them to become even more callous in the name of the greater good and the maintenance of their societal norms. They face an incredible challenge, their size and relative youth meaning that they are somewhat unprepared for what awaits them. However, they have shown themselves to be quick learners, their open-minded nature allowing them to adapt and learn from their mistakes with little trouble. I believe that if they can stay true to their cause and do not underestimate the challenges that approach them, then they may just represent a slim hope for a better life. Whether this takes form of a society free of ethereal control or not, one thing is clear. In the 41st millennium, there is only war.